Right, let's see where we've got to, folks. Right, so people, إن الحمد لله وكفاه والصلاة والسلام على رسوله المصطفى وعلى عباده الذين ارتضى ومن بهداهم اهتدى وبآثار أهل المدينة اقتفى وبعد فسلام الله عليكم ورحمته تعالى وبركاته. Ahlan wa sahlan, people. Ahlan wa sahlan. Bienvenidos. Alright, so can you all hear me? Okay, first question, most important one. If the sound is coming through, fine. Second most important question is, have I got my have I got my drink? Right, so let me just check. Sound is fine. Alright, excellent. Right, well, we've got some incredible. It's not that cold, you're right, but this, my library, is slightly extended, so I mean, don't worry, I'll for public demand, I'll take it off. It's not I'm always I'm blacklisted as it is. What difference does it make? So right, yeah, yay demand thi to you should have said so before. Right, we've got some awesome, incredible questions, people. Incredible questions. Right, I'd also written down some other questions which I'll try and recall them from the top of my head. Alright, Omar. People, well, I had a break from last week, as always, needed. It's good, lillahi alhamd. But I've had some fiery questions. Right, so should we just get straight into these? Alright, buenas noches. Alright, gracias, just gracias. Opinions on idhar. Idhar, I'm not sure what somebody means by idhar. What is the usul? Tablighi Jama'ah. A lot of questions. Let's get straight into these, people, because it's been a bit of a while, right? So Shaykh Dasuqi mentions that the wearing of the niqab is extremism, and his wording is وَهُوَ مِنَ الْغُلُوِّ. He says, and it is from extremism. He actually brings this up in his chapter of Salah, and he speaks about a woman praying whilst wearing a niqab, and he says وَهُوَ مِنَ الْغُلُوِّ فِي الدِّينِ. It is from extremism in the religion. And then in his commentary, him and Dardir actually, they say فِي الصَّلَاةِ أو فِي غَيْرِهَا, whether it's in the Salah or outside of the Salah. Do I believe? Depends. I'm not in favor of the niqab, right, at all, categorically. I mean, let me give some context to that. If you were in I see the niqab as a cultural measure, a cultural kind of tool or prop. If you were in a particular part of the world where by not covering your face you would endanger yourself, then I believe obviously you should do the niqab and safeguard yourself. Your safety is paramount. Now, so if you were going to get kidnapped, gang raped, things like this, then obviously killed, sold off into, you know, modern day slavery or whatever it is, these kind of things, then obviously, or harassed. I mean, I suppose harassed can be a spectrum, because some people could say whistling could be a form of harassment, right? So, and then actual physical harassment could be on the other end. So I suppose harassment can be subjective, because some, I mean, some forms of harassment may be like, well, you know, it doesn't really bother people too much, and it's, although it may be annoying or it may not be, but I mean, but some form is completely clearly unacceptable. So now, especially with the more serious side of things, if you were in that part of the world, let's say somewhere like walking around in Kabul, if you're walking around in Tora Bora, then obviously you're not going to be, you know, flaunting yourself, I'm sure. And neither would the guys, actually. I mean, you wouldn't be walking around in a t-shirt or anything like this in that part of the world, right? Not unless you want to, and definitely not if you're a guy with no beard. Because then you're going to get ready for some kind of special dancing classes. Right? Because I hear the... But anyway, so the thing is, in those contexts, obviously niqab would be the sensible, and it would be the thing that you should do, because it's got nothing to do with religion, it's to do with safety. Now, it's like saying, if you're riding a bike, motorbike, you should have a helmet on. It's nothing to do with religion, it's to do with your safety, right? So, now, in this part of the world, or in many other parts of the world, with that kind of harassment, that kind of, you know, you're not going to get abducted off the streets, and we're not living in, you know, in that kind of a climate. So, right, so the thing is, in this part, it becomes then a religious statement. And as far as religion is concerned, I do not consider the niqab to be at all part of the religion, as one of the leading Maliki scholars in the world today, no, not myself. I followed that on quite nicely, actually, though. It sounded like I was talking about myself. As one of the Shaykh Ahmed Taha Rayyan, who is one of the most senior Maliki authorities in the world today, and who have had the pleasure of visiting him in his home, right, and he gifted me some of his personal books. And inshallah I do intend to, God willing, visit him perhaps this year, bi'idhnillah. That would be awesome. Now he says, and his video is available on YouTube, where he says that the niqab is not fard nor sunnah. It is not from the fard, and neither is it from the sunnah. It is a cultural kind of thing. In the West, I don't think people should wear it at all. Alright, I think it causes much more of a barrier. So, what do you say about the wives of the Prophet covering their faces? So, it means hijab is part of the sunnah. You see, there was this thing of that the Prophet, that Allah says to the wives of the Prophet that they should address people min wara'il hijab. Was that hijab necessarily speaking about a face covering or a particular kind of barrier behind which they would often address and teach people? I think generally in their lifetime, I think it was both. They did used to cover, but they had a kind of covering for when they would offer extended advice and sessions and things like this, and people would ask all sorts. I think that was more for safeguarding them. Right, because you have to remember that there were several, in my understanding, there were several attacks on the Prophet ﷺ, and by extension, people would want to attack his wives as well. I think it was more, in my understanding, to do with things like this, because they weren't the only people. You have to remember that the Arabs generally covered people covered their face as well in that time, especially when they were traveling. So it's like saying, when I gave the motorbike example, you get out, you get on a bike, you put a helmet on. In the similar way, as soon as they set out to travel, due to the kind of dust, due to the kind of desert-like surroundings, that they would wrap up, men and women. They would all do that. So I think in that sense, the Prophet's wives would do that as well. But their covering, they did have some rules which were specific to them. One, they became the mother of the believers, and in that sense people would not marry them and things like this. That wasn't a kind of a sexist ruling or anything, but it was a ruling. It's a kind of compound ruling, which has a sense of immense honor associated with it. So the thing is, like, the honor of their status being of being the mother of the believers, and two, the fact that they carry an immense burden as well, because they are married to the Prophet ﷺ. Okay, now, and after him they will convey the deen. This thing about marriage and stuff like that, in my understanding, was once again done primarily to safeguard them, but two, to keep away people who may think of attacking Islam, the Prophet, and the wives by extension. So you have to understand that there were a lot of kind of plots against Islam as well, against the Prophet as well. In his time there were assassination attempts, and there were people even saying things like, just wait till Muhammad ﷺ dies, and then we will marry his wives and watch what we do. And even now there is a culture in people. I mean, there's a huge, I mean, all the men will be aware of it anyway, but the thing is, there's a culture, you see, that people, they have this kind of, like, obviously it's a very kind of macho, and also this thing about, like, oh well, you know, if they get somebody else now, like, oh, now they've got somebody else's let's say, I don't know, girlfriend or something like this, and there's this whole culture involved, even which it goes on to our day and age. I mean, you see it in all the pop thing, and you see everywhere this whole thing about it being an insult to the other person, that this is how they get people back. That, you know, I did so and so with your, you know, so and so, and I did this and I did that. And people then were not very different. They were just people like us. So there was this kind of thing going on as well, that people were saying that, oh, just wait till Muhammad kind of dies. And then this was part of their plot, that they were going to, part of the denigration was to marry some of his wives, and then to kind of like have this boast about what they've done and stuff like this. And this is why it was to safeguard them first, the women, the wives of the Prophet ﷺ, the honor of the Prophet, and Islam by extension. So this is, and they were given this choice when they married the Prophet, that look, if the Prophet says, and it's in the Quran, that if you want the dunya, Allah will give you the dunya. If you want the messenger of Allah, then it will be the messenger of Allah and the akhirah. And that is your choice. I mean, and Allah says that, tells the Prophet to tell them, you're free to go if you want to go. And they choose. Aisha radiallahu anha says, خَيَّرَنَا رَسُولُ اللَّهِ, the Messenger of Allah gave us this choice, and we chose to remain with him. Sallallahu alayhi wasallam. And radiallahu anhunna jami'an. Right, so that's that, okay. Next question, people. Let's see. There's I have to say, there's a hell of a lot of questions. Right, so are Allah's attributes, what would you say to someone who says Allah's attributes are contradictory? Either someone is all merciful or someone is strict in punishment. That's an interesting one. You see, that is interesting. It's difficult to say. You see, we understand Allah through how He explains and introduces Himself to us. Allah says He's all knowledgeable, all merciful, that He's doing things in accordance with His will. Now the question is, well, how can he offer punishment? How can he do this? But you have to remember, human beings work in a particular way. Creatures work between motivation, between hope and kind of fear. It drives people. So Allah will address His creation in a manner that He knows them, in a manner that He understands, in a way He understands them, and He understands them much better than themselves. So He addresses them through this hope and fear construct, because that is to which they respond. It's like human beings, or not even human beings, creatures, or they respond to stimuli. And so Allah is addressing them with that. So I don't think that's in any way contradictory. I think it has to be done for people in general to kind of respond. Why Mondays? I have school. Well, that's why this is available to watch later on, people. That's why this is available. Right, so there were some other questions, by the way, that had been asked previous. I'm just trying to recall some of these from the top. Right, some people have asked about. Right, they've asked some personal questions, and I want to tie this in with. I'm going to come back to these questions that are being asked, but I want to tie this in with a previous show that we've done and the kind of uproar it caused. Okay, right. In one of my previous questions, I was asked a question about masturbation. And I answered the question, and I've answered this on more than one occasion, but for some reason it generated quite a bit of an interest the last time I answered this. So people got really passionate, surprisingly, and they went on this whole trolling kind of spree to kind of mock me, to kind of do all this this whole charade about, oh my God, why don't you do this? Look what Mufti's saying. Look at this. And people got so annoyed. So annoyed. It surprises me how annoyed people got based on this one response. First of all, I'd like to tackle some of these issues that have arisen in relation to this mas'ala. The first point is, why am I discussing this issue? Well, I'm discussing it because I was asked this issue. Another question, another point is, but there are women listening, perhaps children listening. Okay, now this is what some people have said. Now, look, there may be young people watching this, and there definitely will be women watching this, right? But why do you feel these things are an issue? It's not a religious issue. This is just, this concern that some people have raised is your cultural kind of issue. It's not, Islam doesn't say, oh, people can't know what masturbation is. It's just your cultural heritage that has said that. In fact, if you read the fiqh books that have been written, for young people. In fact, you could read the Salah of Ibn Abi Zayd or any of these books which they say in the beginning that I have written this lis-sibyan, for young children to learn fiqh. They cover in them with surprising detail all of these kind of issues. They cover in them about penetration, about issues like this and that. And so discussing these things, I understand there may be a taboo, especially in certain parts of this Indian subcontinent, Indo-Pak world, but we are not in India or Pakistan or Afghanistan or Bangladesh. We are not over there. We are in the UK. Okay, so I understand it may affect some of you. You may feel, oh my God, I get embarrassed every time I hear that. Well, tough. I mean, okay, if you don't like it, you don't like it. But do you really think, look, they teach children sex education in schools. They want to teach them, and they've introduced it at primary school. They've introduced this. I mean, it's mandatory at a secondary level from the age 11 onwards. Even when we were at school, they started teaching us at the end of primary school. I must have been about 10 or 9 when they started teaching. And that's how this all messed up. and that, Your Honour, is how this all went wrong. So the thing is, look, so it's not that these people, it's not that people don't know, and it's not women don't know these things. Oh my God, a woman's going to hear this. Like, people need to stop freaking out. Okay, treat people like adults. So I'm answering that. Look, if these kind of issues bother you, my show is late. It's past the watershed, right, which is 9 o'clock. I could never be before 9. I can't even seem to make 9:30. So I write on my Q&A unrestricted. So you can ask me anything, I will answer it, inshallah, if I can. So I want to say that, look, if you're offended by that, first of all, I don't mean to offend you. That's not the purpose of my thing, isn't to sit here and say, yeah, I'm going to offend that person over there. But secondly, I don't care if you're offended. People have a right to know. They ask, I will answer. Okay? This is not Islam. When the Prophet ﷺ was being asked, you see, this is an interesting point, because modesty is defined culturally. There's many things that were happening in the time of the Prophet ﷺ that people today would consider immodest, which is shocking. So you would have, there's a hadith in Sahih Muslim, somebody comes and asks the Prophet, Aisha's sitting right there. This is the hadith in Sahih Muslim. The wife of the Prophet is sitting right there, the Prophet is sitting, somebody comes in the house and they're talking, and then they say, I want to ask you a question. I was having sex the other day and I didn't ejaculate. Do I still need to do ghusl? And the Prophet responds, oh yeah, me and Aisha do that quite often, and whenever we have sex like that and I don't ejaculate, I still do ghusl. People today would consider that response to be immodest. And that is the Messenger of Allah ﷺ saying. Shaykh Adam Kelwick has joined us. Ahlan wa sahlan Shaykhana. A legend, people, legend. Those of you that don't know, somebody who really at a grassroots level is making a difference. So if you're not following him, follow him, add him, stay in touch with him. An amazing Shaykh. Right, so the point is, look, this is something which today Muslims would be insulted by. If you said something, can you imagine if your wife was sitting there and you spoke about sex, people would be like, yaar, bahut besharam hai yaar. They'd be like, sharam tumko magar nahi aati. You know, it's like, what is wrong with this guy? Oh my God, his wife was sitting there, and so on and so forth, and he I almost said girlfriend. No, I'm joking. That's that. What was that clip where the guy, one of those sports people says, I just want to say thanks to my wife and girlfriend. No, I mean my there was a viral clip. But anyway, so the thing is, people would get really offended. This is today, and that is the Prophet saying this. So when we speak about modesty, really you're understanding modesty through your own culture, not through Islam. So I just want to answer that. So as the hadith says, yes, that inna Allah la haya fi din. There is no haya regarding matters of the deen. Okay. Next point on this. Okay, some people said, fair enough, if you are going to answer the question on masturbation, boy, this must be making some people very uneasy. They said, why is he joking and laughing about it? Why is he laughing? Why is he saying, nate nate? Why can't he be like this? Why can't... Okay, he wants to discuss it. It's a matter of the deen. Okay, this is some criticism I've had, alright. This is some criticism. Okay, it's a matter of the deen. He can discuss it. I never said he can't. But why can't he just discuss it like all the other shuyukh? Why can't he just say, this is what Imam so-and-so said. He said it's okay. Imam Ahmad ibn Hanbal said it's okay. And he said it's okay. Others disagreed. And there's some hadith on both sides. And there's a difference of opinion. And there's controversy. وآخر دعوانا أن الحمد لله رب العالمين. Why can't he discuss it like that? Why does he have to do all this ha 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 ha, hope you stay with us till the end of the show, ha 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 ha. Well, look, I want to ask something. Why does my laughing bother you so much? But they say, oh, he's turned this into a joke. Why have I turned it into a joke? What, I can't laugh now? What, you know, there's this poet, he says, he's in Arabic, he says, ضحكت فقالوا ألا تحتشم. He says, ضحكت فقالوا ألا تحتشم بكيت فقالوا ألا تبتسم. He says that I laughed and they said to me, haven't you got no shame? He says, I cried and they said, why don't you smile? صمت فقالوا كليل اللسان نطقت فقالوا كثير الكلم. That's the he says, I was silent and they said, God, you know, this guy has no eloquence to him, useless person, just sitting there. He says, when I began to speak, they said, God, he talks so much. The point is, look, you can't please people. You can't please people. You know, ضحكت فقالوا ألا تحتشم. This is it. Like, okay, I'm laughing, saying, don't you have no shame? بكيت فقالوا ألا تبتسم. You know, look, I realize I will never be able to kind of please. Right, I will never be able to please all people. So, right, so the thing is, so I've recognized that I won't be able to please all people, but this comes back to your personality. Right, the thing is, sorry people. Sorry people, just a little emergency here. Right, just give me a moment. Sorry, I'm supposed to, my little one's not been well, so just give me a moment. Got it. Gonna be right back. Just hang on.
Did you know my little sister is so sick? She was like hurting her ears. Okay, don't tell my dad. And even don't tell my dad. I just every time I just go like and stretch my back.
Alright. Just send me a text. Okay. Right. Sorry about that, people. Bit of an emergency there. Oh, my little one, the little devil, isn't too well. Right, so Right, so the thing is, look, this is the issue. You have to understand that this comes back to our personality. Okay. Everybody has a different personality. We shouldn't try to... One thing we shouldn't do is try to be who we're not. Like, why do we feel that the religion can only be transmitted through a kind of morbid seriousness? Where I'm going to say, well, I'm going to be like this, and I'm going to speak like, so, this is... Why do we feel that? Who told us that? And they say, well, this doesn't suit religion. Well, I understand what you're saying, but I also understand why you're saying it. You're not saying it because the religion taught you so. You're saying it because your concept of religion is perhaps more influenced by culture and things like Catholicism than you actually think. So the thing is that, you see, you have to understand. Right, okay. So the thing is, look, anyway, coming back to this point, even in the time of the Prophet ﷺ, there were some people who had a personality that would often be laughing. Right, so amongst them there was one companion by the name of Nu'ayman. And he was known to constantly be laughing. He would laugh his head off. He would laugh so loud. And he would always be ha 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 laughing. And he'd be pranking. And he played pranks on the Prophet ﷺ. And he did, right, so the thing is, right, so the thing is now, the Prophet ﷺ didn't condemn him. He did things like, he would do stuff like, he would actually prank. I mean, he'd actually inconvenience. So he would do things like, he'd go, like he'd buy something and then say, yeah, I've bought this, yeah, the bill, yeah, he's paying the bill. And he would send them to the Prophet, eat it and disappear. He would do things like this. And so people would be like, so obviously the Prophet would be like, what are you talking about? I haven't purchased this. And they'd say, yeah, that guy just said so. And the Prophet's like, no, man. Like, that's what it would be like. And he would prank, several pranks on the Prophet ﷺ. In fact, he played a prank on, I think it was Abu Bakr once, where he went to somebody and he said, I'm going to sell you my slave. You want to buy my slave? And he pointed to this other, I think it was Abu Bakr or it was another companion. He said, that's my slave. And the person said, okay, yeah, fine. How much you want to sell him for? He said, look, I need some quick cash. So I'll do you a good deal. So the guy said, all right, fine. He said, look, he's a well civil, proper on the ball person, help you out with all sort of kind of stuff. So he made a deal and he said, but he's got one issue. I'm going to declare his defect. Right. So they said, what's his issue? He said his issue is that he's got this kind of complex, that he seems to be deluded. He keeps saying, I'm not a slave, I'm not a slave, I'm a free man, I don't know what you're talking about. And he keeps going on, he goes, I'm fed up with that, but other than that, he's a decent person. So they say, not a problem. And then, so what happens is he sells him. So they go to him and he says, what the hell are you talking about? I'm not a slave. They go, nate, nate. They go, we know that one. He goes, but I'm not a slave. And they say, you. And he's like, what the hell are you talking about? I'm not a slave. And they're trying to grab him. And then they realize, oh, it's a prank. So people complained to the Prophet about him. People complained to the Prophet that this guy is always laughing his head off. And he's always doing this stuff. That, tell him off. And do you know what the Prophet ﷺ said? They said, tell him off or we're going to tell him off. Fix him or we're going to fix him. And the Prophet said that that leave him alone. That he will be entering paradise and still laughing his head off. يَدْخُلُ الْجَنَّةِ وَهُوَ يَضْحَكُ. That was the Prophet's response about Nu'ayman. And he goes on to prank. I mean, he does this right throughout his lifetime. Even with Uthman, he was incredibly, in Uthman's time, he played, In Uthman's time, he plays this prank where he sees this blind guy, and the blind guy's going, and he says, "Hey, let me help you." So the guy says, "Oh, thanks." So he walks across, and he says, "Well, is there anything else I could help you with?" And he says, "Look, I really need to take a leak. I need to go to the toilet." So I was gonna, like, obviously the blind person had a usual spot where he would go to, but he said, if there's a spot anywhere close by here, this it'd be of great help. He says, "Not a problem, my friend." He says, "Labbaik wa sa'daik." I'm hazir hoon janab. So he says, "Look, all right, yeah, no problem, I'll take you." He says, "Yeah, come with me. Hold my hand, take my hand." So he takes him into the mosque, and he takes him into the corner, and he says, "Yeah, here, nobody's around here, go for it." So the guy sits down and starts taking a leak in the masjid. So the people jump him. They go to him, "You goddamn so-and-so, how dare you desecrate the masjid," and blah, blah, blah. So he's obviously, now as you can imagine, all, been beaten up and must have obviously wet himself as well. And he says, "I'm blind." So then they go, "Oh, everybody back off, hold your horses." So they say to him, "Look, he says, I wouldn't come to the masjid. Somebody brought me here. I said, take me to a quiet place." So they say, he says, "Who brought me? So they say, "That was Nu'ayman." So he says, "All right." He says, "I take an oath, the day I catch Nu'ayman, I will beat the hell out of him." All right. So now what happens is Nu'ayman finds out about this. So they say, "That blind guy that you did that to, he's really after you." So Nu'ayman says, "Really?" He says, "All right." So he says, "All right, I got this." So he sees him one of the days, and he goes up to him, and he's kind of kind of disguising his voice a little. Says, "Hey, salamu alaikum, how's it going? Oh, I hear you're after this guy who did something really, naughty with you." And he says, yeah, he's Nu'ayman. And he says, "I know where he is." And the guy says, "Wallahi, please, you will be doing a favor to this blind man, this old man, if you can take me to him." He says, "Not a problem." He says, no hay problemas." He says, "Don't worry, come with me, venga conmigo." So the thing is, he takes him with him. He says, "Come with me." He takes it into the masjid again, and Uthman, who happens to be at the time the Khalifa of the Muslims, the head of state, the Khalifatul Muslimin, right, is sitting there. I mean, he's actually praying, he's in Salah, and he takes him up to him and he says, "Shh." He says, "I'm going to take you up to him." He says, "He's not looking, so we've got to be quiet, and when I kind of put you forward, that's him in front of you." So he says, "Okay then," and he takes he gets his stick ready. So he says, "Go." And this guy starts whacking Uthman. He starts going, wow, bang, bang, bang. So Uthman, as you can imagine, is in Salah. Bang, he's like getting attacked. So he goes, "What the hell's going on?" People think, who the hell is attacking the Khalifa of the Muslims? They jump him again. So this guy, so he gets now beaten up again. So now Uthman says, "Well, what happened?" So they tell Uthman, this is the issue. So they tell Uthman, "You have to punish him, Nu'ayman." And Uthman's response was, "How can I do something to somebody who the Prophet tolerated himself?" You see, so the reason I'm sharing this with you people, I'm not trying to say to you should go out there and prank. What I'm trying to say is people have personalities. Okay, my personality may be eccentric. I mean, it is eccentric. It's definitely weird. It's warped. All of these things are... You don't need to tell me. I'll tell you. I'm totally warped. Okay, so I get that. But, you see, we're different. People are different. You don't need to think, oh, this person should change. He should fit into a particular box, which is all about... morbidity, being morbid and being like always sad, or being kind of very serious, or being very... And somehow, you see, people equate laughing to the inability to comprehend the seriousness of things. That's not true. Laughing, or a laughing mindset where you're always laughing at things, is not the inability. Rather, it's the ability to respond to all levels of seriousness with a sense of lightness, whilst not the ability to respond without becoming so stressed. That's what it is. It doesn't mean that just because I might be laughing that I don't comprehend issues, or I can't understand them, or I can't realize what is serious and what isn't. I do realize what is serious, but it just ain't funny enough. So that's just me. So I mean, if you don't like that, fine. The other thing is that, look, I don't understand how people who seriously hate me so much are so emotionally and mentally invested in me. Like, if you hate me, if you can't stand me, then don't follow me, don't watch my videos, don't look, you know what I'm about. You just have to look at me, and I obviously don't look like you're kind of, some sheikh from the Arabian Peninsula. So, and I'm obviously not of that mentality. So look, don't follow me. Don't listen to me. Like, why are you getting so, these people follow me so closely. They almost stalk my things, and then they get upset. Well, that's what hate does to you. That's what hate does to you. I would say to you, look, chill out. Don't worry about it. Don't worry about it, people. Don't worry about it. What's that? There's a poem, it'll come to me, right? So the thing is, now, that's what I would advise people. Look, don't hate. Life's too short to be really hating, and it really just punishes you as a person. It doesn't punish anybody else. There is something Imam Shafi'i actually says, where he says, كل العداوة ترجى مودته إلا عداوة من عاداك عن حسدي. That every kind of animosity can turn into friendship, except the person who opposed you based on hate. And that is so true. That is so true. So I mean, that's what. The other thing is, what I'd like to say is, I'd like to highlight what this mas'ala actually was. Okay. This mas'ala, which I'd highlighted about, obviously, about self-indulgence, as you might want to call it. You see, I explained to you that there is a difference of opinion. I explained to people that it's not clear-cut haram. Some people have said it's haram, other people have disagreed. I highlighted to you how Ibn Hazm brings narrations from the Salaf, saying that we would command our youth to do this, so they can remain modest, so they can remain pure, and they don't become so distracted with thoughts and things like this. And I said that, look, that's an understanding. That was also the view of Imam Ahmad ibn Hanbal, that this, at the end of the day, it's a personal thing. If a person does it, he does it. If he doesn't do it, he doesn't do it. And the thing is that people who get so worked up about this, it's surprising how much they actually resemble things like Catholicism, how much of maybe a subconscious Catholic influence they have on their understanding of religion, more than Islam. Because it does not make sense that within Islam you would have this kind of Puritanism, this kind of, it does not make, and I've said to people, look, and here's the irony, look, things like this, I've asked some people sometimes, okay, so tell me, self-indulgence is haram, as you say. Is it haram for your partner to do that to you? So they say, no, that's okay. So, okay, so, right, so it's okay for somebody else to do it to me, but it's not okay for me to do it to me. So you say, okay, let me add another layer. Is it okay for, whilst my partner is doing that to me, that my hands are above her hands? Is that okay? So they would say, yeah, that's okay. Is it okay for me to adjust the speed levels by my hands? So they would say that's okay. So I say, well, so what if she accidentally moves her hands and my hands happen to touch my own organ, right? At that point it now becomes haram. And then they say, I've turned the religion into a joke. I mean, seriously, does that even make any sense? It's okay for other people to do this to you. It's just not okay for you to do it to you. But it's okay for you to control other people doing it to you. But it's not okay if that medium suddenly gets from... I mean, how ridiculous is this? How ridiculous is this? What kind of a religion is this? This is why I say that these are the kind of things the Prophet was warning against. When he said, you will end up following the Jews and the Christians. He wasn't talking about things like, dressing like them, like some fools and naive people believe. He was talking about turning the deen into this Puritanism. See, in Christianity they had all this celibacy, and this is a sin, this is all this, and over the time, yes, many Muslims also, many scholars as well started to see that kind of outlook. And they got influenced as well by and other people disagreed with them. But it's time that people do evaluate and see what's right in line with the Quran and Sunnah. And Allah says in the Quran, مَا فَرَّطْنَا فِي الْكِتَابِ مِنْ شَيْءٍ. We have not left out anything in this book. By default, all things are permissible. So, if you can show me where Allah has said it's haram, if God said it's haram, or the Prophet said it's haram, everything else. And then the irony is, and I ask the irony, these are the same people who will advocate that, oh, it's okay. You know, I had somebody troll me and say, oh, Ibn Hazm actually said it was bad manners. I said, okay, right, and these are the same people who say, oh, in our Islamic books, they say sex slavery is okay. They say it's okay, consent is not necessary if you have a female sex slave, you can essentially rape her. They say it's okay because she's your property. They say a sex slave doesn't even need to cover her breasts or anything, she just needs to cover between the navel and the knee like a man. And they actually say a slave wasn't even allowed to wear the hijab. They say she should be stripped of her hijab so we can tell she's a slave. These are the kind of views that they endorse in their books. How can you endorse those views and then find this immoral? How? Like, is this not an inconsistency? Like, you can somehow support all of these views. You don't find them problematic, but you find a little, somebody touching themselves, all problematic. So my point was, look, have some consistency. Learn your own religion. So I mean, look, why is it that you are so quick to act all Puritan? Oh, I'm so puritanical, and ask these same scholars, these same scholars that say this is haram, 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 they will defend all of these things that I said. They will actually say, yes, they will say, we don't do it today. They will say, we don't do sex slavery today, but it's okay in Islam, but we don't do it today. You see, so I ask you, so what's different then between what you're pushing and what ISIS is pushing? What's different? And why do you act so puritanical when you speak about small things like this. Okay, so this is my point anyway. So I wanted to clarify that because it really did bother me that, look, I mentioned to you great imams. I told you there were chains of transmissions going back to people like Hassan al-Basri, the great Tabi'i, who met over 100 companions. There were narrations going back to the Salaf saying, we would command our youth. There were narrations going, there's statements from Imam Ahmad ibn Hanbal saying, look, what difference does it make? It allows people to de-stress and just carry on with their lives. What? You can disagree with that view, I understand. You can disagree with that view, but why are you so, and why does it bother you what other people do? I can understand, look, if you don't want to follow an opinion, don't follow it. Why are you so bothered about what other people do? Why do you want to control everybody? I mean, okay, I don't want to do it. Let's say I say I don't want to do something. I won't do it. Why is it like, why is everybody, why are the other people on this globe who happen to be, self-indulging? Like, what the hell has it got to do with you, mate? Last I checked, you weren't God. These ain't your people, ain't your creation. So look, leave people alone. So this is the thing. So I mean, that's that. Somebody had asked me, what do you think of Faryal Sheikh Saab? Who is Faryal? Are you talking, is that Amir Khan's wife, Faryal? I don't know which other Faryal you're speaking of, and I have no opinions on such people. I mean, I don't really know them, so I can't really speak about them. Alright, so the thing is, look, the thing is, coming back to, I've been asked as well, how do you cope? Because other people out there struggle as well. How do you cope with these kind of things? People trolling me, people had set up certain kind of pages dedicated to trolling me and things like this. And I would say, look, my advice to other people as well, there will always be haters out there. There will always be haters. You set your eyes on the goal. Don't worry about these people. I mean, have fun, tease them, wind them up a bit, but do not let them bother you. Okay, they are far too insignificant. Okay, I say to people, look, I'm just one. You have, like in the UK, we must have thousands of ulama. Thousands. I mean, every year, the madaris system must be churning out about 400 at least ulama. We must have thousands and, I don't know, maybe 10, 15,000 ulama in the UK, we must have. Although most of them are voiceless, but we must have so many like that. Right, so the thing is, right, why, on my view, I'm just one person. You've got so many, you've got hundreds, you've got thousands of people with the opposing views. So, feel comfortable. Follow them. I mean, why are you getting so insecure over one person? So that's what I would say is that, look, and this is going out to other people as well who face, let's say, just in their day-to-day lives, hate or things like this. Don't worry about it, man. Keep your eyes on the goal. Keep going, inshallah. Greatness awaits you. These people are way too insignificant. People who are obsessed about other people, their punishment, this poetic justice, is that they just suffer throughout their lives. And I want to add another point, that I want to address another question here. You see, there are different, this question is to do with religiosity, okay. Who is all this? There's a lot of comments about a Stephen. Who the hell is a Stephen? Alright. Right, okay. Right, so he's blocked. Right, anyway, so the thing is, there's a question about religiosity. Who turns to religion? Now, I understand that the vast majority of Muslims, like I've said before, are not really your kind of religious people. So to them, religion is a kind of rite of passage, something that they resort to for ceremonial use. So, for example, births, marriages, divorces, and deaths. So these are the four rites of passage that people will resort to religion on. In addition to that, they will resort to religion for redemption. Okay, when people are feeling guilty, they will come to religion to redeem them, so they can feel better. And linked in with redemption is for a kind of source of blessing, that they want some peace, so they come to religion. Now, this is generally the vast majority of, you can call them non-practicing, kind of regular Muslims. Now, out of these, you're going to get different types, different strands. You're going to get the strand who want to become more associated with religion, but they see religion as too polarized. So they see this Maulana, this Maulvi Saab, who wears this long kurta, unfortunately many of whom may be kind of, not maybe in the best of shape and stuff, a bit disheveled, and they've got this look, and they think to themselves, to be religious, I have to be like that. Coke looks flat. I love flat drinks, honestly. Drinks. Honestly, Pepsi, I'm surprised they haven't done a flat version. I would definitely be buying it all the time. So anyway, that's a side note. Right, so the thing is, look, now these people, they see a polarization. So they see, I can't look like that, therefore I can't be religious. So they dissociate themselves from, like, that gulf grows farther and farther apart. Okay, this kind of divergence. These are the people that I'm reaching out to. Okay, this is my objective, and maybe the objective of many of you here, to kind of show that the deen is a natural part of our lifestyle. That it's not something which should inhibit your life, it should complement your life. That you can be however you want, whoever you want, and the deen is very much you. It will be like the air that is around you. You will not even notice it. Okay. Now that is the people and the message that I'm trying to get out to and get to. And then you get another strand of these people who are not, the same, let's say, not religious and religious crowd. But the not religious crowd that I'm speaking, the regular Muslims, you get another strand of them who are not trying to necessarily connect to religion, but they need religion for redemption. You see, to these people, redemption is important. So they feel guilty with all the sins they're doing, and they want to be redeemed. A bit like the Christian confession. Like they have this thing of, absolve me from my sins, O Father. Forgive me, O Father, for I have sinned. So the thing is, now, this thing, right, these people will naturally have a problem when they see me. Why? Because, you see, the image I portray doesn't offer redemption. It shows them the very same life that they're already in. Okay, so, you see, to these people, they're already in this kind of life. So these people would already, like, they wear a t-shirt, wear a necklace, bracelet, chill out. Maybe not spiky hair. I don't think many people have spiky hair. I think I'm just an anomaly with that. But maybe a goatee, or, they're just chilled out. And they might think music is not haram anyway. They might indulge. They might do these kind of things. So these people, they don't want to see somebody like me. Because I just offer them religion, but like I offer them that, the deen is like, you can be like who you want to be, but you need to connect with your creator. To them, that's not, they need they need to feel redeemed. So they need to feel like they have suffered. So when they come onto religion, they need to do something like change their attire, grow a beard, have people look down on them. They need that as a rite of passage to kind of feel that they have been redeemed. For them to say, look, I know I've started praying, but I can carry on looking like this, isn't enough. So I understand sometimes why these people, they get so disturbed when they see me, that strand of people. I get that. Look, they will be bothered when they see me, because I don't offer that level of redemption for them. But you see, first of all, that's not, I'm trying to aim this at people who are trying to reconnect with the deen through a naturalness. Okay. Now, for other people who need an attire, who need an absolution, they need to be absolved of their sins, they need to be kind of go through this rite of passage, they need confession, they need these kind of which are really, to me, very Catholic kind of things. But people that need that, obviously I'm obviously not your guy. And I get that. I respect that. You have thousands of other people that you can go to. In fact, the majority of all people that you will ever turn to in religion will look like that. So my advice to them is, look, just don't be so judgmental. You yourself have come out of this, like you want to connect with religion, so let not the first commandment you hold on to be, let's be judgmental. Because that's not a commandment, okay? So you've just come out of this world or life where you feel wrong, that you've wronged people or wronged things. So the last thing you should do now is be judgmental of other people. That's just hypocrisy. And you're better than that, god damn it. So inshallah, so I just want to give share those words inshallah with all of you. Okay, so right. Barbadiye dil jabar nahi fez. That was the thing. That was the poem. Right, I'll share that with you actually. This is actually a good one. Barbadiye dil jabar nahi fez kisi ka. वो दुश्मने जान है तो भुला क्यों नहीं देता. See, this is the thing, when you hate on people, it's your choice. If you want, you can forget them. So it's your choice to be preoccupied with people. Right, let's take some of these. There were some really fascinating questions. I'm sorry to be have kind of gone on about that, but it was important. So that's why I did kind of go on. Right, what's the ruling on feeding cats haram food? What are you going to serve them? Halal roti. Right, so the thing is, look, animals can eat anything, okay? Relax, people. They're not human beings, and they're not governed by the Sharia. They don't follow fiqh. Right, so will Dajjal really have a garden and fire with him, or these metaphors? In my understanding, these things are more metaphoric about realities which perhaps even we don't comprehend today, or maybe we will in time. I don't think there were literal things like he's going to carry this and say you want to choose this or this. I don't think it's literal, but that's my understanding. People may disagree. Maliki opinion on raising hands in congregation after Salah. But just to come back to that, look, there is a lot of metaphor in the Quran and Sunnah. There's a lot of metaphor. Okay, there's a lot of religious speak. And it's nothing new. We don't need to get worried about that. We don't need to kind of think, oh my God. There's a lot of speak like that. Things like the Prophet, I give this example where the Prophet says, oh, a person traveling on his own is a shaitan, is a devil. 2 people traveling are a devil, but 3 people, that's travelers. Now, can you wobble, Sheikh Saab? I think that guy's just got blocked. Right, so the thing is, now, the point is that, you see, when the Prophet said that about people traveling, what he meant was to safeguard them. Okay, that's what he was trying to do, look out for their best interest. And sometimes that's done through religious speak. Okay, so it's nothing to be kind of get all worked up about. There is metaphor, and Muslims were so used to metaphor, I'm telling you. They were so used to metaphor. There was metaphor in everything before. Poetry, so much metaphor. Right, honestly, immense metaphor. Look in the Quran. Allah says, oh, and when Musa went up and he came across this wall, فَوَجَدَا جِدَارًا, they found this wall, يُرِيدُ أَن يَنْقَضْ, and the wall wanted to fall over. Walls don't want things. They're not, they don't have desires and determination. They're inanimate objects. But the wall wanting to fall over, this is language, it's metaphor. Okay. So these things exist all the time. Those of you, I said an Urdu poem a little earlier on, Urdu poetry, is awesome. The reason I'm giving that as an example is because you can't perhaps understand, many of you, Arabic poetry, but poetry in any language has so much metaphor in it. Urdu poetry, prior to the kind of, even after the British thing, but prior to that, when it was a lot more independent, so if you look at the classical poets like Mir and all these people, so much metaphor. When they're often speaking about, so when they're praising beauty, for example, they will refer to, so let's say, the beloved, whoever that is as an example, or whoever they want to praise, they refer to them as almost like false idols, false gods. Okay. Alaykum salam, KEM. So the thing is, look, they refer to them as idols, which today people would hit the roof over, but poetry is full of that. So they would call them, in fact, the Urdu word sanam, which is used for like beloved or something like this, is actually the Arabic word sanam with a sad, sanam, which means which comes in the Quran, asnam, statues which are worshipped, false deities, is a sanam. And the reason they call this is because it's metaphor, to say that the person is so committed and devoted to this person in appreciating them that you'd almost think he's worshipping her or him, whatever, as a false deity. So they call them sometimes like but, statue, which we still use today commonly in Urdu and many common kind of dialects as well, which means idols, statues. They used to call them like but khana, but kada, this kind of what does Mir says in one of his poems? He says that let us now go from this place of from this house of idols. Let us now go from this. That अब तो चलते हैं बुत कदे से मीर. Let us go from this kind of idol, like a temple, idol worship place. फिर मिलेंगे गर खुदा लाया. He says that we will meet again if God wills it, if God guides us to this again. So you can see the kind of irony in false deity and God guiding us to this again, that we will meet again if God guides us to this again. So this kind of thing, when he's saying things like this, this was so common. But today people obviously get really emotional over all this kind of stuff. And this is because a lot of our influences come from certain parts of the world. So I know that the Salafi group, for example, they deny any metaphor being in the Quran. So, although there is metaphor in the Quran, they can't deny it in language, but they don't like to accept there being any metaphor generally. Maybe they might debate one or two instances, but they say that there's no such thing as metaphor in the Quran. And these are the influences that are impacting many young people in this part of the world, unfortunately due to the kind of reach that certain mediums have through the finances that they can provide. Okay, right. Will Maliki opinion on raising hands in congregation after Salah? Look, the thing is, raising hands after Salah, it's a common practice. Imam Malik and the early school of Medina did not like this. They considered it an innovation because the Prophet never did it, that everybody does du'as, like after Salah. Like everybody does this. To be honest with you, so I would personally be with the early school of Medina, which is the Imam Malik and several, at least several centuries after, who didn't really, they don't consider it haram, but they consider it better not to do these innovations, because they say, as Imam Malik said, the Sunnah is enough for us. That why do we need to make things up if we've got the Sunnah? Now, however, the later Malikiya did say it was fine. They agreed with the Shafi'i school and the Hanafi school in saying that innovations can be good as well. So I mean, if you want to do it, it's fine. It doesn't really bother me personally. I don't do it myself. Obviously, I mean, if I was in a place where everybody was going to stare down at me, if I didn't, I would do it. But I wouldn't normally, if I had a choice, I wouldn't do it. But if somebody chooses to do it, it doesn't bother. I wouldn't be like, oh my God, ya akhi, you know, why do you do it? There's diversity. You know, the deen, as I said before, that the deen of Allah, that this deen of ours is incredibly vast, and more vast than that is the mercy of Allah. So we shouldn't forget that, people. It's been asked many times, having pictures in your house, and then Hazrat Aisha, when she used to use her picture on a pillow, Prophet did not enter the house. That's not, you see, I've answered this before, that you can have pictures in your house. The picture that she had on a curtain was the Prophet ﷺ. You see, according to the Maliki madhab, there's two opinions. You can either, when you're standing in prayer, you can look at in sujood, at the place of sujood, like by the way, I've done the how to pray according to the School of Medina video, so people, let me just do a plug-in right there. If you haven't watched it, watch it, people, like it, share it, god damn it, right, get it out there. And I know a lot of you were asking before, so inshallah, hope that's of some help. In the Maliki madhab, there's two. You can either look down at the point of sujood, as Qadi Iyad said, or you can look straight ahead. Now if you look straight ahead, now according to this hadith, you see the Prophet was praying. Now the Malikis would say, well, that's because he was looking straight ahead at the curtain, and there was a picture. So the Prophet said, I find myself getting distracted by this picture. So Aisha radiallahu anha removed it and she made a pillow. So some people interpreted this to say, oh, she cut it up and made a pillow. It doesn't say that in the thing, that she cut it up. And there's a hadith which is sahih where the Prophet said, illa raqman fi thawb, except what is a drawing in a cloth, that is okay. Pictures are fine, people. Even idols, figurines, statuettes, these things are fine. That was early Islam, when there was a strong fear that people were so close to, you know, leaving idol worship that they may fall back into it. Today, this kind of stuff isn't going to happen. If you see a statue, you're not going to start thinking, oh my God, maybe this is a god. I doubt it anyway. Right, so wearing red clothing isn't allowed in Islam due to hadith in Sahih Muslim. You see, there are conflicting hadith about wearing red. That's not in Sahih Muslim, that's actually in other books like Ibn Majah and other books that the Prophet ﷺ forbade red. Now, however, there is a hadith in Sahih al-Bukhari and in other Sahih where the Prophet is being described, and I think it's Anas bin Malik, and I think it's Bara who's describing the Messenger of Allah ﷺ. And he says, I saw him in a red suit. They used to have their versions of suits, which were like a top which went with the bottom kind of sarong and izar. And they had a kind of like a shirt thing that went with it. And a matching one was called a suit. It was called a hulla in Arabic. So he says, رَأَيْتُ النَّبِيَّ صَلَّى اللَّهُ عَلَيْهِ وَسَلَّمْ فِي حُلَّةٍ حَمْرَاءٍ. I saw the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam in a red suit. And he says, and it was the best I'd seen anybody wear red. And so from here, many ulama, Imam Malik and other people said, look, there's no harm in wearing red. The Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam himself wore red. Some ulama tried to say, look, oh, this was maybe, how do you reconcile? And they said, well, maybe those other hadith don't clearly say red. They're like when red is mixed with something. So they said maybe it's to do with when red is tainted with something. Some people said, oh, this is a woman-like color. And I think the Hanafi madhab kind of seemed to have gone down that way of saying this was woman-like color, and therefore a feminine kind of color, and therefore women should wear it. Some people said this was just contextual. And you see, there's an interesting thing, it's in Sahih Bukhari from Ibn Abbas. He says, when it comes to clothing, do whatever you want. Do whatever the hell you want, man. But he says, as long as two things are being watched. He says, one, do not be kind of do not be unnecessarily extravagant in squandering wealth over it. Buy a nice expensive suit, Buy expensive stuff, but not unnecessarily squanderingly extravagant. So like I say, you know what, I'm going to buy a t-shirt, I'm going to buy this t-shirt for £1,000. I mean, but I mean, it could be expensive, but it doesn't need to be unnecessarily like extravagant, right? So he says that, he says, I remind you of saraf, and then he said makhila, and he says, and don't be arrogant in your clothing. You can feel good, feel confident, but don't be arrogant, don't look down. Arrogance is not when you feel up, it's when you look down on other people. Feel up, or you like people, because when you feel up, your confidence levels are raised and your productivity as a person is enhanced. So feel up all you want, just don't look down on other people. That's all. So he says these two things, which I think are awesome. Some people like Imam Tabari, he has an interesting kind of mix. He says that, look, it should be based on the day and age. He says in his day and age, scholars don't wear red, so he doesn't like it, but he doesn't consider it haram. But he says you should go with your day and age. That was his understanding, and Ibn Hajar kind of goes along a similar track to Tabari on that. Right, okay, I have a question about how the ahadith show the severity of missing salah in a congregation interpreted if it is sunnah, entailing no sin. You see, the thing is, you have to understand when this ruling on praying in congregation is a sunnah, okay. Why was it so strongly emphasized by the Prophet? Because in his time, they were the first effective community. In his time, it was important that they maintained regular contact with the Messenger of Allah regarding revelation, regarding rulings, regarding strategy. It also was a deterrence from hypocrites who were conspiring and plotting to destroy Islam. It was important that people had this kind of bloodline, this kind of heart that was pumping into the people. Now, this is still important today, but it's not an obligation. I understand that the Hanbali madhab does consider it an obligation, but the other madhabs don't. Now, and some people felt that, oh, if you were a neighbor of a masjid, then your salah is invalid unless you're in the masjid. But that, the most madhabs, like the school of Medina, the Hanafi madhab, Shafi'i madhab, didn't really accept that interpretation. So I hope that helps, inshallah. And I understand, look, Ibn Mas'ud does say, he says that, look, it is a sunnah, but he says that if you leave the sunnah of your messenger, لَقَدْ ضَلَلْتُمْ, you've been misguided and so on. But once again, I understand that to be strong rhetoric to keep something alive. Okay. Imam Malik himself actually didn't attend the masjid and did not pray in his local mosque for almost 25 years of his life. Which is quite shocking considering who he was, the Don of Medina. And when he was asked why you don't do that, he just said, some people tried to say it was because he was ill, but it wasn't, because he says, he actually responds in some of his things, and he says if I go there, he says I can't be there and not be critical. So he said, I'm just going to leave it. And that's what his actual response was when he said I can't be there except I will want to be critical. And then he says, so I just chose to not be there. And the thing is, which is really interesting, I mean, you see, sometimes we have a perception of what religion was like, how people were, and then there's the reality. We need to understand that our perception is what is not on point. People today, when they think of Islam through the ages, I'll tell you how a lot of people think. They look back to something like, because a lot of people, let's say they have a rural background in, let's say, in the UK from like India, Pakistan. Now they will look back to their grandparents, yeah, who lived a simple life in a village that isn't metropolitan, cosmopolitan, and they will picture, oh, this is how people must have been for hundreds and hundreds of years until now recent modernity. That is not true. You are looking at people in a village who are not your normal, they are rural people who usually lack things like ambition. They just, I mean, I don't mean to denigrate them, but they are usually people who just have a particular mindset. They grow up, they farm, they live through farming, and they pass, and that's their life. People historically are not like that. They're actually very much like modern city folk people today, except you just remove some of the modernity tools we have. They were as conniving, as clever, as sharp, as kind of twisted, as kind of whatever that you can think of people today. They were just like that. They were as reckless. They weren't like these. People think back to like their ancestors in some village and think, all people were like this. Yeah, they weren't. That's just because these are some people who lived through some very hard times in a rural part of the world, and they didn't have much external ambition. They just, that's not how the world was previously. The world had that as rural parts, and it had cities. So people need to understand that historically people were just like they, when they think back about scholars, they think, no, you know, they refuse to accept that scholars were influenced by their environments, by the thought that was going on in their time. There's a question here about like food and Zabiha, about thing that is sacrificed in the name of other gods. Or you see, you have to understand that historically all people usually, when it came to docile animals, they sacrificed them as some kind of offering to their god. This was the norm throughout the world. Hunted animals weren't usually sacrificed as offerings, they were just hunted. Now, so Islam says that what is haram is what has been sacrificed for another god. So the thing is that, but historically that was the norm. So my point, what I would say to people there, by the way, is that obviously, as far as, if I understood the question correctly, halal, we as Muslims would stick to halal, what is Zabiha meat, which is slaughtered kind of meat. And this is one of the functions it serves, is it's an identity that unites Muslims worldwide. And it also kind of gives us a certain, one, it adds a ritual element to it, that it's been sacrificed in the name of Allah. But two, it unites Muslims through a kind of identity. And it is important, an identity. This was the identity that the Prophet gave us. He gave us the food and he gave us the Salah. But people seem to have abandoned that, and they've made it into all these other things and not that, and which is ironic. So that's what I would say. But my point of mentioning the food thing is that, you see, people don't understand. They get kind of shocked, like when they think of religion today, they have this understanding that, look, let's take a look at the school of Medina. According to the school of Medina, this will be a little to freak you out, right? According to the school of Medina, very few animals are ever actually haram to eat. Pig is haram. Animals which are dead are haram, so they're already dead. Animals that have been sacrificed for other than Allah. So if you sacrifice an animal for Vishnu, although Hindus are generally supposed to be vegetarian, but let's say for Zeus or Thor, right, or for Odin, right, if you're sacrificing, then it's haram. Other than that, no animal is haram. They might be discouraged. So a lion isn't haram according to the school of Medina. A tiger isn't haram. A wolf isn't haram. Elephant isn't haram. Giraffe, kangaroo, none of these things are haram according to the school of Medina. Wild animals are only makruh, but they're not haram. Everything in the air, everything that flies is halal. Eagles, vultures, crows, not that people eat them, but everything that's in the sea is halal, including amphibians, including crocodiles, including turtles, tortoise, crabs, everything. right? So I actually recently just had a croc burger. So I wanted that for so bad. I was like, oh, I want to taste a crocodile burger. So finally got to eat one, right? But the point was, look, these things, so now that's shocking to people because that's not their perception of religion. But surprise, surprise, natty natty, you have had your perception. You prejudged. And I accept, according to the school of Kufa, the Hanafi madhab, the Shafi'i madhab, the Hanbali madhab, many things are haram. But the school of Medina, where the Prophet lived, people, the school of Medina, yep, I ate a crocodile, I wanted to eat a crocodile for so long, honestly. It's been, and I finally got to eat one, so I was like, whoa, it actually tasted quite nice, I have to say. It was a bit crispy, and it was, I so badly want to taste something like I wonder what lion meat or tiger meat actually tastes like. But anyways, you see now these things, people get shocked because their perception of religion is different. But this is the school of Medina, people. It is different. So get used to it. When somebody came to Imam Malik and he said, I want to learn the deen, he said, then take up residence in Medina. He said that the Quran was not revealed at the riverbanks of the Euphrates. He said it was here that the Messenger of Allah ﷺ lived and taught. It was here that the Quran was revealed. And it was here that the angel Jibreel descended. And it was here that the Messenger of Allah rests. So he said, so if you want to learn Islam, get yourself to Medina. See, now this is the thing. Now people, they find the school of Medina all warped, and they find it all strange. That's their thing. Right, okay. Right, people, I think I better start trying to wrap up some of these. There were so many amazing questions I really wanted to get into as well. Let's see what else has been. Is studying at a mufti or alim level more intense in Pakistan, India, Syria, or the Middle East countries? You see, the thing is that studying an alim course, you have to remember that you will take away from it what you bring to the table, right? Like as long as they can provide you the content, but you are the vessel. So some places it's kind of like a mixed thing, because in places like Pakistan, I studied in Pakistan, I studied in the Middle East as well, and I've visited other countries as well to benefit, North Africa, Morocco, Egypt. But the thing is, and obviously here in the UK, some places are excellent in some things, like Pakistan, India, excellent in providing the kind of the hadith coverage and things like this, the content, the breadth, fitting it in to the syllabus and stuff like that. But then their mentality sometimes is very rigid, and they condemn critical thought, and they don't like you being free, open-minded. They don't like you analyzing or evaluating, and you might get the odd sheikh that might be kind of okay with that. But finding somebody like that open-minded, I did have some shuyukh who were slightly open-minded in Pakistan, but they were a minority. Okay, so in the Arab world, you'll get sometimes, depends where you are, you'll get sometimes more open-minded people, but you might not get the same breadth of syllabus that's set in their institutes, because I think their institutes, unfortunately, in some places are not as, I mean, places like Al-Azhar are obviously massive, but I mean the smaller institutes are not as well funded and things like that. And then you get places like the UK where you will definitely suffer in terms of maybe the content, but if you do secular studies as well, or you mix with people, it will give you cognitive openings. So sometimes you have to mix up all of these things, okay? And you have to mix up your teachers. I studied in a Brilvi madrasa in Pir Karam Shah, who is an amazing one of the best scholars that Pakistan has produced. If you want to call it Pakistan, obviously I'm sure he was from around creation of Pakistan. But Pir Karam Shah Sahab, who I highly revere. He was one of the early chief justices, the supreme judge of the federal Sharia courts in Pakistan, and he was very forward-minded, very forward-thinking, very inspired by Shah Waliullah Dahlawi and his concept, his version of maqasid, of the objectives of the Sharia, way ahead of his time. Pir Karam Shah Sahib was, he would, if you read some of his fatwa, even then challenging things like why people have said music was haram and stuff like this, way ahead of his time. He was the first person in Pakistan to infuse contemporary education with religious education in the madrasa. The first madrasa of his kind to do that. Now most madrasas do it, but he was the first. He was a graduate also from Al-Azhar, and a student of people like Shaykh Abu Zahra, who's an amazing, outstanding Al-Azhar kind of legend. So you see that kind of influence. I studied in a Deobandi madrasa, some amazing mashayikh I had, people with incredible kind of devotion and commitment. People who I've spoken about previously, like Shaykh Abdullah Al-Mantaqi, who I highly inspired me in many ways to, his humor, his kind of, his things of, but at the same time his devotion to the studies, to hadith, his kind of commitment to saying that where the evidence takes you, you should go. People like Shaykh Azizur Rahman, who is a major Shaykh al-Hadith, he was in the same madrasa, he teaches now Bukhari, he taught us Tirmidhi, he taught me personally in his home, the Muwatta, a person who had so much reverence for the for this deen and the sciences. Seriously, so much respect he had for when studying hadith and teaching hadith. And alhamdulillah, I was fortunate to have a very personal kind of bond with him when I was studying. And these people were from, that was a Deobandi institute. I studied at a Salafi institute. I took the exam. I would often go to they had an amazing library. It was funded by the Middle East. No surprises there, but it was an amazing library. I actually read through portions of things like Ibn Taymiyyah's Ta'arudul Aql wa Naql, the clash between reason and text. And scripture in that library when I was would attend the Jamia Abu Bakr Salafiyya, and I gave their exam for a BA, for a bachelor's, and passed. Right, so the thing is, so I studied there, my shuyukh have been, and I think it's important to diversify, because then you humanize all groups, and it doesn't become about a group, it becomes about a mentality, that you have issues with people as opposed to having issues with you have issues with I said that wrong there. You have issues with mentalities of people as opposed to issues with groups. Okay, so it's the mentality which is an issue. Okay, so I mean that's something that I would encourage. Look, if you are going to study, try to diversify, try to learn from everybody. Look, even if you disagree with people, I tell you that I studied with a Zahiri Sheikh, believe it or not, when I was in Damascus. I took something, it was an amazing, one of the most eloquent people. He was a major fan of Ibn Hazm, somebody who kind of against my will he forced the love of Ibn Hazm into my heart, against my will. I mean, when I met him, I didn't like Ibn Hazm very much, and I would mock, like be sarcastic and stuff like that, and against my will of it, he really just being just showed me that he was an amazing legend, and I had to say that what, he was an amazing legend, and so that was somebody who this sheikh, his name was Batal actually, which means hero. He was a Somali sheikh. He was a legend, honestly, one of the most eloquent people in Arabic I'd ever come across, and I actually ended up living with him for a little while, and so I benefited from him. And so the thing is, you have to diversify, and then you get, obviously my allegiance and love primarily is with the school of Medina, but the thing is, this is all part of our heritage, it's all Islam, it's all our deen, it's all, yes, my general thing is with the school of Medina, but it's all there. And I think, inshallah, if people are going to go out and study, then why not indulge, huh? Why not, inshallah? And it's amazing to see that. People, I think, true, somebody saying without, just because you can't, whoa, what's that about? I think a sensible, right. Without being exposed to alternative perspectives, you can never grow. I totally agree. Cognitive growth only comes through conflict, through cognitive conflict. There has to be dissonance, okay, cognitive dissonance, which will result in growth. Okay, so that is immensely important. People, are there any other burning questions? Ibn Taymiyyah, the legend. Ibn Taymiyyah was a legend, definitely, in many things. Mufti Taqi Uthmani. Mufti Taqi Uthmani is an amazing individual, I have to say, definitely. I mean, Mufti Taqi, I was asked a question about women travelling. And I've said before that women can travel in groups, they can travel on their own, they can travel in aeroplanes, trains, they can do this. The key thing was safety. If their safety is generally there, like it is in this part of the world, then it's fine. They can, if they're going to get into a plane and land in a certain airport and then go, that's fine. They can do that. And many people have given that fatwa, including people like, traditionally within the school of Medina, like people, legends like Abu Walid al-Baji in his commentary on the Muwatta says about women travelling. He says if they're in a caravan is like he says it's like a town. What difference does it make? He says the main thing was their safety, and it's insured. People today like Sheikh Muhammad al-Hassan al-Dado, he legend from Mauritania, has spoken like that. And I heard Mufti Taqi in his private dars, when I say private, I mean in his class lecture, not private, but I mean his dars on Bukhari, he actually said that's what he personally believes as well. I don't know if he'll come out and say that to the public, knowing the pressures in Pakistan, but he said that to people who were witnesses, who told me that, they're in his class right now, and they told me, look, this was what was covered, and Sheikh made it very clear that was his choice. And so I respect this kind of thing that he is doing, although I would disagree with him on certain things. I came across a fatwa of his recently about some women being troubled in some parts of Europe regarding the hijab. So they asked him that, Sheikh, what is it necessary that these women have to wear hijab? I would say that, look, I've highlighted this before, how hijab fits into the Sharia. I won't repeat that again. It's in my previous thing about the kind of stages that the Sharia places importance on. Right, so you have the necessities, the kind of needs, and the kind of decor, the tahsiniyat, and that's where hijab is. If you are feeling threatened or intimidated, the real reason hijab came was for modesty. So I would say, look, as long as you're just modest, you can dress in a modest way. If you're feeling intimidated, you do not need to wear the hijab. Okay, like that. So this is for people who are being threatened in certain parts of Europe, that are facing threats. Some women have been attacked. There's awful videos of like women getting kicked down subways and all these kind of things going on. May Allah protect them. May Allah protect people everywhere. But the thing is, anybody that's fearing, that's fearful, they do not need to. Like, if they want to take off the hijab, they can take off the hijab. The main reason this came was for modesty. Okay, preserve modesty. That's the main thing. If you feel comfortable, then you can resort back to the default ruling of wearing the hijab. Now, the thing is, what I heard Mufti Taqi's response to this, I've read it actually, was that he said, well, they should just migrate. And I thought, come on, get real. That's, I love and respect Mufti Taqi and consider him definitely from my indirect teacher. He's one of the teachers of my direct kind of teachers and stuff. So the thing is, but that is not a pragmatic solution. Hey, I know, oh, you're suffering. Why don't you just get up and leave and go where? Pakistan? What the hell, where you just get kidnapped and gang raped? Like, What kind of... Can you see the kind of turbulence that's going on in Pakistan? It's become infested with terrorism. Bombs going off everywhere, zero value for life, corruption. I mean, look, don't get me wrong, I love Pakistan in that sense, but I'm just saying it for what it is. When you say things like this, what do you want people to do? Just get up and leave. Go where? Go where? Where do you want them to go? What? And is that how life works? That you just get up every time, you don't face things, you just get up and just disappear? That's not how... So I would not endorse that kind of fatwa. I would be critical of that kind of mindset of this, oh, every time there's a problem, oh, well, you shouldn't really live with kuffar anyway. Why shouldn't you live with kuffar? And let's face it, this part of the world, let's be honest, this part of the world today holds more rights for human beings, for men, women, children, elderly, disabled, the sick, for employees, for citizens, for animals, for the environment, it holds more rights for all of these things as a society than any civilization throughout history, throughout human known history. It's not perfect, but it does hold. I mean, let's be honest. You have more rights here. All of these things. The environment has more rights here. Animals have than anywhere throughout human history. So, if you were an alien coming to Earth today, if you're an alien and you've come to Earth and you had to choose where do you live, let's be honest, you would choose here. Because this is where it's happening. Like there's nothing wrong in saying that. It's because it's what's leading the world today. So, you wouldn't say, I know, I want to live in Afghanistan or in Pakistan. You wouldn't want to live there. I mean, the people, they don't want to live there. The people, they want to live here. So these fatwa, I find them almost hurtful. I find them, because I find it hurtful. I find it like kind of almost disregarding the suffering of the people. Like I find it like a very, well, why are you living amongst kuffar? What? And you're telling me people in Pakistan don't get beaten up? Women don't get kidnapped and raped in Pakistan? What? That doesn't happen there? They don't get attacked? Women are getting attacked every day in Pakistan. They get acid thrown on them. They get forced into marriages. They get raped. They get sold. They get, it's going on much more statistically. Bombs are exploding in all these cities over there. You have to pay corruption. You have to pay, you bribe everybody. You have to, I'm not trying to bring out the mistakes. I know it sounds like, I'm not. I'm trying to say, let's not be dismissive. It's like somebody comes to you and they say, look, I've got diabetes. Right? And then your response to them is, well, you shouldn't have eaten so much sugar. That's insensitive. You can't say that. That's wrong. Right? Because it's not... do you understand? Like, it's hurtful to the people. Because you're obviously saying to them, well, who told you to live in a kafir country? Why don't you get up and leave? But that's not a solution. You can't do that. So, look, let's be realistic. If we can understand, Allah can definitely understand. Right? So, Allah definitely understands these things. Right? So, and there have been, and a woman's hair and her not wearing a hijab isn't the end of the world. Right? Most Muslims don't wear it anyway. So if a woman felt intimidated, but she was going to dress modestly, then, as long as she's intimidated, she can resort to that fatwa. And once she feels comfortable, she feels secure, she can go back to the hijab. And I respect all those women that are in the face of adversity wearing hijab. And that's, respect to them. But I don't judge people. People who don't wear hijab or wear hijab, that's their personal thing. It doesn't mean they're necessarily better people. You see, like we've set this kind of thing that, if you've got a hijab on, she must be a good girl. Or if he's got a big beard, he must be a good guy. And this is why, the amount of people I have coming to me for things like relationship issues. And this is one of the reasons why, because they judge them based on this. They, but she used to wear a hijab. Oh, but he had a big beard. Oh, but, he used to wear a thobe. Oh, but, well, why did you judge people like that? What about their character? What about talking to them? What about their personality? What about whatever it was that you wanted to actually marry? I mean, if you just wanted to marry a garment, then just buy a garment and go home and get your fix. But the thing is, I'm sure you want to marry a person, not a garment. So this thing of, look, don't judge people, not positively, not negatively, by how they look. Many great people, and those people who are doing this, I highly value and respect their struggles. But what I'm trying to say here is that it shouldn't lead to a judgmental character either. Right, people, inshallah, with that, I'm going to have to leave you. I've taken up way too much of your time. Inshallah, do keep firing your questions at me. If you're on Facebook and you don't follow me, inshallah. If you have any questions, send them to me. I will try to respond. My bloody voice, I usually send voice notes and it's playing up for some reason. I can't seem to send voice notes. But or if you're on Twitter, add me. It's the same, Mufti Abu Layth. Snapchat, Malm 2014. That's MALM 2014. You can snap me your questions. I'll try to respond, inshallah. Other than that, people, take very good care of yourselves. Say a little kind dua for me if you can. And I'll meet you all, inshallah, next week. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi ta'ala wa barakatuh.